As the auctioneer's gavel rang through the air, a young girl's heart raced. With nothing but her allowance money saved up, she had just made the biggest decision of her life. She had bought a service dog. Little did she know this wasn't just any dog. This was the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives in ways no one could have ever imagined. The crisp air of the autumn afternoon carried a sharpness that was unmistakable, a reminder that the seasons were changing. The leaves, painted in hues of red, orange, and gold, fluttered as if they were dancing to a rhythm only they could hear. Lucy, bundled in her warm jacket, felt the coolness of the day seep into her bones, but it didn't bother her in the slightest. In fact, it made the moment feel even more magical. This was the day she had been waiting for, the day she would finally have the chance to make a difference. Lucy was only 8 years old, but her heart was as big as the world itself. 4 months she had saved every penny from her allowance, every coin she could scrounge up, just for this day. The local charity auction was being held in the community hall, and Lucy knew that today, with all her heart, she would find a way to do something special. Perhaps she could buy a toy for a child who didn't have many, or maybe she could help fund a project for the homeless families in her town. She didn't care how small or big her contribution was going to be, she just wanted to help. The auction house was buzzing with excitement. Long rows of tables were lined with all sorts of donated items: paintings, vintage clothes, trinkets, and even handcrafted furniture. The hum of conversations filled the room, but it was the stage at the front where the real excitement lay. The auctioneer, a man with a slick black suit and a booming voice, was just about to start the bidding. Lucy had never been to an auction before, but the idea of seeing things being sold to help others made her feel like she was part of something larger than herself. She stood on her tiptoes to get a better view, clutching her purse tightly, her prized possession, the one that held the money she had saved for months. "Welcome, everyone." The auctioneer's voice echoed across the room, snapping Lucy out of her thoughts. "Thank you all for coming out today to support this wonderful cause. We have some truly remarkable items up for bid today, including something that will steal your heart." Lucy's eyes widened. She wasn't sure what he meant, but the excitement in his voice made her pulse quicken. She leaned in, hoping that whatever was about to come up on stage would be something special. The auctioneer gestured to the curtain behind him, which slowly began to part. Lucy's breath caught in her throat as a figure emerged from the shadows. At first she thought it was a trick of the light, but as the figure stepped forward, it became clear. It was a dog. Not just any dog, but an adorable golden retriever wearing a service dog vest. His fur shone with a rich golden hue, and his eyes were the color of melted caramel, glistening with a deep, soulful intensity. There was something almost regal about him, but what struck Lucy the most were his eyes, wise beyond measure, as though they had seen more than anyone could imagine. And yet, despite his beauty, there was something else, something almost sad in his gaze. "Meet Max," the auctioneer said with a proud smile. "This incredible dog has been trained as a service animal, capable of assisting people with disabilities. He has a heart as big as his paws, and he's ready to be a companion, a helper, a hero for someone in need." Max stood on the stage, calm and collected, his gaze sweeping the room as though he were taking in every person's energy. His tail wagged slowly, but his body remained perfectly still, almost as if he were waiting for someone to come forward and claim him. And that's when Lucy knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she was the one he was waiting for. Her heart fluttered in her chest as she watched the dog, her mind racing. She had never imagined an animal like Max would be up for auction. In fact, she had never even thought about a service dog before. But now, standing there watching him with those gentle eyes, she knew she had to have him. No one else seemed to notice the connection between them, but Lucy felt it deep inside, like a thread pulling her toward him. The auctioneer continued, "Max has been trained to assist people with a variety of needs: seizure alerting, mobility assistance, emotional support, and much more. He's been thoroughly trained, and his previous owner can no longer care for him, so we're hoping he'll find a loving home where his talents can truly shine." Lucy swallowed hard. She didn't know how much a service dog would cost, but she did know one thing: Max was meant for her. She didn't care about the money, she had saved every penny she could, and she was determined to make it enough. Her fingers trembled slightly as she gripped the handle of her purse, her palms sweating, but she wasn't going to let that stop her. She had come this far. The bidding started. The auctioneer glanced around the room, raising his hand. "Who'll start the bidding for Max?" he asked. A few people in the back raised their paddles and the bidding began to climb. Lucy's heart raced as she watched the numbers tick higher and higher. $200, $500, $1,000. Her eyes darted to her purse. The amount of money she had saved wasn't nearly enough for a dog like Max. It wasn't even close. But something inside her told her she had to try. She couldn't let him go to someone else. Max deserved a home where he could be loved, where his quiet strength and wisdom would be appreciated. He didn't belong to the highest bidder but to someone who truly understood him. The auctioneer paused for a moment, scanning the room. "I see we have some strong interest in this fine animal," he said, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Who will take him home today? What's the next bid?" Without thinking, Lucy raised her hand, her voice trembling as she called out, $200. A gasp rippled through the room, and a murmur of surprise spread like wildfire. $1,200 was a significant amount of money, almost unheard of for a child her age to have. But it was all she had. Every cent of her savings, every coin she had managed to accumulate for months, was riding on this moment. The auctioneer paused, his eyebrows raising in disbelief as he looked down at Lucy. Then he cleared his throat and gestured toward her. "I see we have a bidder. $1,200 right here in front. Do I hear $1,500? No one else raised their hand. The room grew silent, all eyes on Lucy, who felt her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at Max and he looked back at her with those same knowing eyes. She smiled faintly. She could feel her hands shaking, but she held her ground. The auctioneer hesitated for a moment, then smiled warmly. "Going once, going twice. Sold." He slammed his gavel down with a sharp bang. "The beautiful Max is yours, young lady." Lucy's heart soared. She had done it. She had won him. The room erupted into applause, but Lucy's focus was solely on Max. She could hardly believe it. She stood there for a moment, just staring at him, not quite able to process what had just happened. The auctioneer, still smiling, motioned for her to come up. "Come on up here, young lady. Let's make it official." Lucy shuffled toward the stage, her legs wobbly with excitement and nerves. When she reached the auctioneer, he leaned down to her, his voice soft but kind. "You have a good heart, kiddo. Max is lucky to have you." Max, who had been standing perfectly still, seemed to know that the transaction was complete. His eyes softened as he stepped toward Lucy, his tail wagging gently. As she crouched down to meet him, Max leaned his head into her hands, and she could feel the warmth of his fur and the gentle thrum of his heartbeat. Her eyes filled with tears, tears of joy, of relief, and of a deep, unspoken understanding between them. Lucy had found him. And Max had found her. The crowd slowly dispersed, some lingering with smiles, others commenting on the little girl who had somehow found a way to bring the golden retriever home. Lucy didn't hear any of them. All she could focus on was Max, her new companion, her hero. As she carefully clipped his leash to his harness, she whispered to him, "Let's go home, Max. I think you're going to love it there." Max, who had been waiting all this time, was finally going to the place he belonged. Bringing Max home felt like a dream come true. For years, Lucy had imagined the day she would finally have a dog of her own. She had longed for the companionship, the unconditional love, and the steady presence of a pet who would be by her side, no matter what. When she first laid eyes on Max at the shelter, she had known instantly that he was the one. There was something in his deep brown eyes, something both wise and comforting, that made her heart skip a beat. She had been nervous at first, unsure if the connection was real, but as the shelter worker led Max to her, she felt as though the world had momentarily paused. The bond was immediate, and she knew that life would never be the same again. Lucy had always been a dreamer, someone who saw life through the lens of possibility and hope. She had named him Max after her favorite superhero, the one who always found a way to save the day. To her, it seemed like a fitting name, as if Max was destined to play the role of protector in her life. She wasn't sure yet why she felt that way, but something told her that this dog wasn't just any dog. Max wasn't just a companion, he was something more. The first day together was unlike anything Lucy had expected. It wasn't filled with the usual chaos of a dog bouncing around in excitement, as she had seen in other dogs. Max wasn't wild or overly playful, like the energetic pups she had known in the past. Instead, he was calm and observant. As they drove home from the shelter, Lucy could see him sitting quietly in the back seat, his large, attentive eyes focused on her. It felt almost as if he was studying her, as if he was assessing her, trying to understand who she was and what she needed. His gaze wasn't just curious, it was protective, almost as though he was already guarding her from the outside world. Lucy couldn't explain it, but she had the distinct feeling that Max understood her more deeply than anyone else ever had. When they arrived at her apartment, Lucy opened the door and allowed Max to step out. He sniffed the air and slowly walked inside, his movements graceful and deliberate. Lucy watched him, her heart swelling with affection. She had expected him to dart around, sniffing every corner and getting excited about his new home. But Max simply stood still for a moment, surveying his surroundings. It was as if he was settling in, choosing a space to call his own. He walked over to the couch where Lucy had laid out a soft blanket for him, and lay down quietly, curling up into a small ball. The silence in the room was almost soothing. Lucy sat down beside him and ran her fingers through his fur, marveling at how soft and warm he felt. There was an immediate sense of comfort in his presence, a quiet reassurance that made her feel safe in ways she hadn't realized she needed. Max didn't demand attention the way other dogs might. He didn't nudge her hand or bark for affection. Instead, he simply rested, content to share the space with her in perfect stillness. That night, as the sun set and the apartment grew darker, Lucy found herself alone in her thoughts. It had been a long time since she had felt this kind of peace, and she didn't want to lose it. She had always been a person who lived with a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. There were so many things she had never been able to figure out about herself, so many dreams that felt out of reach. But now, with Max by her side, she felt a quiet sense of reassurance that maybe everything would be okay. Max's presence was like a gentle anchor, keeping her grounded in a world that often felt chaotic. As the night wore on, Lucy found herself sitting on the bed, her legs crossed beneath her, and Max curled up at the foot of the bed. His head rested on her feet, and his body was warm against her, offering a comforting weight that seemed to settle her restless thoughts. Lucy could feel the rhythm of his breathing, slow and steady, and it somehow calmed her own. She leaned back against the pillows, gazing out the window at the soft glow of city lights. In that moment, Lucy whispered her fears to Max, things she had never told anyone. She spoke quietly as if the words were too fragile to speak out loud to anyone else. "I don't know what I'm doing with my life," she confessed softly. "Everything feels like it's just slipping away. I feel like I'm stuck, like I'm not moving forward." She paused, brushing a strand of hair from her face, her voice trembling. "I just want to figure things out, you know? I want to know where I'm going." Max didn't respond, of course. He simply lay there, his head still resting on her feet, as if he understood what she was saying. His presence, calm and unwavering, was more than enough. Lucy sighed, feeling the weight of her words settle between them. She had never realized how much she had been carrying inside her until that moment. It wasn't just the weight of her dreams and uncertainties, but the fear of never finding her way. Yet here she was, sitting in the quiet company of a dog who seemed to understand her better than anyone else. Max lifted his head slightly, his eyes locking with hers for a brief moment. It was as if he was telling her that she didn't have to figure it all out tonight, that everything would unfold in time. The connection between them was so strong and so immediate that Lucy felt as though he had somehow become her confidant, her protector, and her companion all at once. She closed her eyes and leaned back, letting herself drift into the peaceful stillness that Max had brought into her life. The night passed quietly, with Max remaining by her side. When morning came, Lucy woke to find him still curled up at the foot of the bed, his eyes half open, watching her. There was something so grounding about the way he looked at her, something that reminded her that, even though the world was full of uncertainties, there were certain things that would always remain steady. Max was one of those things. The following days were filled with small, quiet moments of connection. Max's calm presence brought a sense of stability to Lucy's life that she hadn't realized she was missing. He wasn't the type of dog to demand constant attention, but every time she looked at him, she could feel that bond growing stronger. He would follow her from room to room, always within a few feet of her, as if to ensure that she never felt alone. Even when he was just lying in the corner, watching her with those steady eyes, Lucy felt a sense of peace wash over her. Max wasn't just a dog. He was something more, something she couldn't quite put into words. It wasn't just that he had a way of making her feel loved, or that he was always there when she needed him. It was the way he seemed to understand her on a deeper level. Sometimes, it felt as if Max knew exactly what she needed even before she did. One afternoon, as Lucy sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, she noticed Max standing near the door. His head was turned toward her, and his eyes were locked on her face, waiting for something. At first, Lucy wasn't sure what he wanted, but then, as if to answer her unspoken question, Max padded over to the door, his tail wagging slightly. She looked at him, a smile tugging at her lips. "You want to go for a walk?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Max's tail wagged a little faster, and Lucy laughed, getting up from the couch to grab his leash. As they walked through the neighborhood, Lucy couldn't help but marvel at the way Max carried himself. He was graceful yet protective, his movements confident and purposeful. It was as though he was always on alert, always watching over her. Lucy couldn't help but feel safe when he was around, as if no harm could come to her while he was by her side. There was something uniquely reassuring about the way Max walked beside her, his pace matching hers as if they were in sync with one another. By the time they returned home, the bond between them was undeniable. Max had become more than just a pet. He had become a partner in life, a source of strength and comfort, a constant presence in her world. Little did Lucy know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would take them both to places they never expected. A journey filled with love, adventure, and above all, the quiet understanding that no matter what the future held, they would always have each other. As Lucy settled in for bed that night, Max once again curled up at her feet. She smiled softly as she ran her fingers through his fur. The peace she had been searching for so long had finally arrived, in the form of a dog named Max. As the days passed, the bond between Lucy and Max grew deeper, something that neither of them could have predicted. The small, quiet moments they shared together, whether it was Max lying by her feet as she worked or simply sitting with her in silence, felt like a kind of unspoken language, one that didn't require words. But as their connection deepened, Lucy began to notice something about Max that was truly extraordinary. It started on a sunny afternoon in the backyard. Lucy had decided to take a break from her routine and enjoy the outdoors. She had recently set up a small swing set in the corner of her yard, hoping to create a space where she could relax and clear her mind. The weather was warm, the kind of day that begged for lounging in the sun with a good book or simply letting your thoughts drift like the gentle breeze. Max, as always, was by her side, though he wasn't particularly interested in the swing or lounging. He seemed more intrigued by the sounds of nature. The rustling leaves, the chirping birds, the occasional scurrying of squirrels in the trees. Lucy swung gently back and forth, her thoughts wandering, a slight smile on her lips. Max was pacing back and forth near the fence, his eyes flicking between her and the yard around them. There was something soothing about watching him, the way he moved with quiet purpose, always alert, always present. But as Lucy leaned back, enjoying the moment, she felt the coolness of the breeze against her skin, and for just a second, her mind began to wander into thoughts of things she hadn't quite processed yet. Her career, her dreams, her worries. In that fleeting moment of distraction, Lucy's foot caught the edge of the swing and she tripped. It all happened so fast. One second she was sitting comfortably and the next she was tumbling to the ground, twisting awkwardly as she fell. Pain shot through her knee as she hit the grass hard, the sharp sting making her gasp. Lucy gritted her teeth trying to push herself up, but the pain was too intense. Her knee felt as though it had buckled under her weight, and she could feel a sense of dizziness creeping in, making it hard to focus. Max, who had been pacing near the edge of the yard, immediately stopped in his tracks. His head snapped toward her, and for the briefest moment their eyes locked. There was no hesitation. Without a second thought, Max dashed over to her side. He nudged her gently with his nose, as though trying to assess the situation. Then he did something Lucy didn't expect. He began to lick her face, tenderly brushing his tongue against her cheek in a calming gesture. "Max," Lucy muttered, her voice a mix of pain and confusion. "It's okay. I'm fine." But Max wasn't taking no for an answer. His body language was urgent now, his tail wagging frantically as he continued to nudge her gently, his nose pressing against her in a way that almost seemed like he was trying to help her stand. Lucy's heart swelled with affection, but the pain in her knee was too much for her to focus on him entirely. Then something remarkable happened. Max suddenly stopped and turned toward the house, his posture tense. For a brief moment he stood still, his ears perked up as if listening for something. Then, without warning, he opened his mouth and barked, a sharp, loud bark that seemed to echo across the yard. It wasn't a playful bark. It wasn't a bark meant to get attention. It was a purposeful, forceful bark, the kind that carried an urgency that Lucy couldn't ignore. Max barked again, louder this time, and his head turned back toward her, as though waiting for a response. It was then that Lucy realized he wasn't just barking for the sake of barking. He was trying to alert someone. Before Lucy could even react, the back door to the house swung open, and her mother came rushing outside. Her face was filled with concern, her eyes wide with shock as she rushed to Lucy's side. "Lucy, what happened? Are you okay?" her mom asked, kneeling down beside her, her hands trembling as she gently touched Lucy's injured knee. Lucy's gaze shifted to Max, who stood a few feet away, watching the entire scene unfold with a calm and knowing expression. It was as if he understood that her mother needed to be there, that he had done his part, and now it was up to her to take over. He had known exactly what to do, when to act and when to alert someone else. "What's going on with him?" Lucy asked, her voice shaky, both from the pain and from the realization of what had just happened. He barked and then you came. How did he know?" Her mother looked down at Max, her face softening with recognition. "Lucy," she said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and concern, "Max wasn't just barking. He was trying to alert me. He's trained to help in situations like this. But what's even more remarkable is that he seems to have developed an ability to sense when something is wrong before anyone else even knows." Lucy stared at her mother, trying to process what she was hearing. "What do you mean?" "He can sense when I'm hurt." Her mother nodded slowly. "Yes, but it's more than just that. Max was specifically trained as an assistance dog, but what he's doing now, it goes beyond what we expected. He's developed a kind of intuitive sense about your emotions and physical state. When you're in pain or distress, he knows before you do. And he responds instinctively." Lucy's mind raced, her thoughts scattered as she tried to make sense of this revelation. She had known that Max was special, but she hadn't fully understood the extent of his abilities. He wasn't just a pet or a companion. He was her protector in ways that went far beyond what she could have imagined. Her mother continued, her voice gentle but filled with pride. "Max has always had an incredible ability to connect with people. He's been trained to assist, but what you've witnessed today is something he's developed on his own. He can sense things, emotional shifts, physical discomfort, and even potential danger. It's like he has this deep understanding of you, Lucy, in a way that no one else does." Lucy looked down at Max, who was still standing at the edge of the yard, his tail now wagging softly as if he was waiting for her approval. She felt a mixture of emotions, amazement, gratitude, and a deep sense of awe. How could a dog, with no words or explanations, know her so well? How could he sense her pain before she even realized it herself? "I didn't know he could do that," Lucy murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. "I thought he was just a dog." Her mother smiled softly, her eyes filled with affection. "He's much more than just a dog, sweetheart. He's your guardian, your companion, your friend. And now it seems he's taken on an even greater role. He's developed a talent for sensing when you need him the most." Lucy took a deep breath, trying to absorb everything her mother had said. It was clear now that Max was more than just a pet. He was an intuitive, deeply connected presence in her life, one that had the ability to protect her in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. For the rest of the afternoon, her mother helped her tend to her knee, applying an ice pack and making sure she was comfortable. Max stayed by her side the entire time, lying at her feet, his calm presence a constant reminder that he was there to watch over her. Every now and then, Lucy would glance down at him, and he would look back at her with those knowing eyes as if to say, "I've got you." It was as if he could sense her unspoken gratitude, and it made their bond even stronger. As the days went by, Lucy began to realize just how much she had taken Max's presence for granted. He wasn't just a dog who sat by her side for companionship. He was her silent guardian, ever watchful and ever aware of her needs. And the more she observed him, the more she realized that his actions weren't random. They were a direct response to something deeper within him, something beyond his training. Max's ability to sense her emotions, her pain, and even potential danger had become an invaluable gift in her life. It wasn't just that he was a trained assistance dog, it was that he had an almost supernatural sense of awareness. He knew when she was anxious, when she was in distress, when she was about to fall, or when she needed someone to lean on. Max wasn't just a pet. He was a constant, reliable presence in her life, the kind of companion she had never known she needed. Lucy spent the following weeks paying closer attention to Max's behavior, observing how he reacted to her moods and her physical state. Whether she was feeling down or experiencing anxiety, Max was there, offering his calming presence, his watchful eyes, and his uncanny ability to know just when to comfort her. And though she had known that she loved him from the moment they met, it was now clear that their bond was far deeper than either of them could have imagined. Max had a secret talent, a gift that went beyond the ordinary. And Lucy knew without a doubt that it was something she would never take for granted again. One day Max's true purpose was revealed in a way that left everyone in tears. It wasn't a grand moment of heroism or a dramatic scene of life and death. Instead, it was a quiet, understated act of love that would change Lucy's life forever. And while Max's instinctive ability to sense danger or distress had already made him invaluable, it was on that fateful day at school that his true gift would emerge, in a way that no one could have ever predicted. Lucy had always been the kind of person who kept her struggles to herself. She didn't like to burden others with her emotions, especially when it came to her anxiety. But it was something she had lived with for as long as she could remember. Sometimes it was manageable and other times it was all-consuming. Her anxiety attacks were the kind that crept up without warning, an overwhelming wave of fear and panic that would leave her breathless and paralyzed, as though her body and mind had disconnected completely. She could feel her heart race, her thoughts spinning uncontrollably, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to get her body to cooperate. No one at school knew what was going on inside Lucy's head. She had always been able to mask it, to put on a brave face and carry on with her day, even though inside she was often battling a storm she couldn't explain. Her friends knew her as the bubbly, slightly quirky girl who loved to read and spend time with her dog, but they had no idea about the struggles she faced in silence. That day it started slowly, just a feeling of unease creeping up her spine as she sat in class. Lucy tried to shake it off, but the sensation only grew stronger, tightening in her chest, making it harder to focus on the lesson in front of her. She could feel her breath beginning to quicken, her hands growing clammy, and she knew even before it hit full force that she was heading into an anxiety attack. She gripped the edge of her desk, trying to steady herself. Just breathe. Calm down. It's just in your head, she told herself. But it didn't work. The more she tried to control it, the worse it became. Her vision started to blur, her heart thudding in her chest, and the walls of the classroom seemed to close in on her. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. It felt like she was trapped in her own body, a prisoner to her own mind. That's when Max, who had been quietly lying by her side in the classroom as part of the school's therapy dog program, sensed something was wrong. Max wasn't just a well-trained dog who had learned to sit and stay. He had been specially trained to help people like Lucy, individuals who suffered from anxiety or panic attacks. His presence in the classroom had been a source of comfort for many of the students who struggled with their own issues, but what no one had anticipated was the way Max would react to Lucy's specific needs, his bond with her unlocking a deeper, more profound instinct to help. As the panic overwhelmed Lucy, Max lifted his head from the floor and turned toward her. His eyes, always calm and attentive, locked on her face, as if he knew exactly what was happening. Without a moment's hesitation, Max stood up and padded over to her, his body moving with purpose. He didn't bark or make any noise. He simply nudged her gently with his nose as if asking her to focus on him, to let his presence anchor her. Lucy's breathing had become shallow, her hands trembling, but she could feel Max's warmth against her leg as he settled next to her. His body pressed up against hers, his fur soft and comforting. And then, slowly, something miraculous began to happen. Max let out a soft sigh, his rhythmic breathing steady and slow, like the calm beating of a heart. Lucy instinctively tried to match her breath with his. She focused on the rise and fall of his chest, the way his breath seemed to anchor her, calming her frantic mind. She heard nothing but the sound of his breathing and her own, a simple and peaceful rhythm that felt like a lifeline in the midst of her panic. Max nudged her again, this time more insistently, as if encouraging her to take a deep breath. She felt his warm nose against her hand, guiding her fingers to rest on his fur. She followed his silent prompt and inhaled deeply, holding the air in her lungs for a moment before exhaling slowly. Her body shook slightly, but she followed his lead, focusing on her breath, and slowly her world began to slow down. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lucy was able to focus. She could feel her body begin to settle, the tightness in her chest loosening as Max's steady presence worked its quiet magic. With every breath, the panic seemed to dissipate a little more, like the waves of a storm receding, leaving calm in their wake. It wasn't just the physical act of breathing though. It was Max's presence, the way he remained calm and unflinching beside her, never leaving her side. His quiet assurance that everything would be okay, that she was not alone, was what helped Lucy break free from the panic. For the first time in years she felt a profound sense of peace. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the class, Lucy found herself sitting there, still beside Max, her breath no longer ragged, her heart no longer racing. Her mind felt clearer, and the panic that had gripped her so tightly had loosened its hold. She blinked, surprised by how quickly she had regained control, how Max's instinctive actions had grounded her when nothing else could. Her classmates were already gathering their things, none the wiser about what had just happened. Lucy felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but before she could get up, her teacher, Mrs. Taylor, came over to her, a knowing smile on her face. "You're okay now, Lucy?" she asked gently. Lucy nodded, still in awe of what had just transpired. "Yeah, I'm fine. Max helped." Mrs. Taylor nodded thoughtfully. "I saw what he did. He's quite remarkable, isn't he?" Lucy looked down at Max, who was now lying peacefully at her feet, his tail gently wagging. "He really is," she whispered. It wasn't just a trained response. It wasn't just that Max had learned what to do during an anxiety attack. No, Max had done something more than that. He had used his bond with Lucy, his deep understanding of her emotions, to help her in a way that was beyond training. He had instinctively known how to guide her through the storm, not with commands or tricks, but with the quiet, unspoken language of love and trust. Word quickly spread among the school staff about Max's incredible reaction, and it wasn't long before Lucy's mother was called in for a meeting with the school counselor, Mrs. Harris. Lucy was reluctant at first to talk about her struggles, but her mother was supportive and understanding. Together, they explained what had happened, and how Max had been able to sense Lucy's distress before anyone even realized what was going on. By the end of the meeting, Mrs. Harris was in tears, touched by the bond between Lucy and Max. She explained that there were other students at the school who also struggled with anxiety, and that perhaps Max's role in the classroom could expand. Max wasn't just a therapy dog anymore. He had become something more, something extraordinary. Over the next few weeks, Lucy began to open up more about her anxiety. With Max by her side, she no longer felt the need to hide her struggles. He had shown her that it was okay to ask for help, that there was no shame in being vulnerable. And even though she still had her moments of fear and doubt, Lucy no longer faced them alone. Max, in his quiet, unassuming way, had unlocked something within her, a strength she didn't know she had, and the courage to face her fears head-on. He had become her lifeline, her saving grace in a world that often felt overwhelming. In the months that followed, Lucy's anxiety attacks became less frequent. With Max by her side, she learned new ways to cope, to manage the panic before it took over. And though she would never be cured of her anxiety, she no longer saw it as something to fear. Because now she had Max, and together they were unstoppable. The bond between Lucy and Max grew deeper with each passing day. What had begun as a simple companionship between a girl and her dog had blossomed into something far more extraordinary. Max had always been there for her in ways that defied explanation, a silent and steady presence that offered more than just comfort. He offered an unwavering sense of love and loyalty, something that only an animal, pure in its intentions, could provide. For Lucy, Max was no longer just a service dog. He was her hero, her best friend, and the one constant in her ever-changing world. He was there during her most challenging moments, when anxiety threatened to overwhelm her, and during her smallest joys, when all she needed was a quiet companion by her side. Max didn't just help her manage her struggles. He helped her face them head-on with courage and resilience. Through Max, Lucy found not only strength, but also a sense of peace, knowing that no matter what happened, she had a partner who would never leave her side. As the months passed, the relationship between Lucy and Max continued to evolve. Max's presence wasn't limited to his role as a service dog. He became Lucy's guide through the twists and turns of childhood. He helped her navigate the challenges of school, friendships, and growing up. Whenever Lucy faced moments of self-doubt, Max was there to steady her, his calm demeanor giving her the reassurance she needed. Word of Max's incredible abilities began to spread through their community. People had always known Max as the dog who went everywhere with Lucy, but it wasn't until they witnessed him in action, whether it was helping her through an anxiety attack or simply comforting her in her times of need, that they fully understood the depth of his impact. Max wasn't just a pet. He was a living testament to the power of service animals and the profound bond they could create with their humans. At first, it was a few neighbors who began to take notice, but soon Lucy's story reached further. As Lucy spoke about her struggles with anxiety and how Max had helped her overcome them, others began to see how animals like him could be transformative. She became an advocate for service dogs, sharing her story at local schools, community events, and even in small-town meetings. With each story she told, more people became aware of the importance of animal companionship for those who faced invisible struggles. She spoke not only about her personal journey but about the potential for service dogs to change lives. Max had done more than just heal her. He had inspired an entire town to rethink the role of service animals. People began to see beyond the fur and the wagging tails, realizing that these animals had the power to change lives in ways that were both subtle and profound. Lucy's advocacy work sparked conversations about mental health, about the challenges faced by children and adults with anxiety, depression, and other invisible illnesses. It opened eyes to the transformative potential of animals, and more importantly, it encouraged others to see service dogs as not just helpers, but as heroes. One afternoon, Lucy sat in the park with Max beside her, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. His head rested gently on her lap, his eyes closed in peaceful contentment. As she absent-mindedly stroked his fur, a thought crossed her mind. I bought him for companionship, but what I gained was so much more. Max had become more than just a dog. He was her hero, her lifeline, her unspoken source of strength. He had taught her that she didn't have to face her struggles alone, that it was okay to lean on someone, whether human or animal, when the weight of the world felt too heavy. Max had helped her discover a part of herself that she hadn't known existed. A sense of courage that came not from trying to control everything but from trusting in the love and support of those around her. Lucy smiled as she looked down at Max. He was content, simply resting by her side as if he knew how much he had done for her. His job, it seemed, was never truly done. But even so, he never asked for recognition. Max didn't need praise or thanks. His love was unconditional, his devotion unwavering. He was just happy to be there for her, and that was all that mattered. Through Lucy's advocacy work, more and more people began to understand that the bond between a person and their service dog could be life-changing. Lucy had seen it firsthand, and now, as she spoke to others about Max's quiet heroism, she realized that she was no longer just telling her story. She was giving others hope. Hope that, like her, they could find their own Max, their own source of strength, their own silent hero. As the seasons changed and Lucy grew older, she knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. There would be difficult days, moments of doubt, and times when she felt lost. But she also knew that no matter what came her way, Max would always be there. He was more than just a dog. He was the constant in her life, the one who had never failed to show up when she needed him the most. Together they had faced the darkness of anxiety, and together they would face whatever else came their way. It wasn't always easy, but with Max by her side, Lucy knew that she could handle anything life threw at her. Max had become her partner in life's greatest adventure. Through every challenge, every joy, every lesson learned, they had each other. And that was more than enough. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Lucy closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the soft grass, feeling the steady rise and fall of Max's chest beside her. She didn't need words to express what she felt. The bond they shared was deeper than anything that could be put into words. It was a bond built on trust, love, and a quiet understanding that no matter what, they would always have each other. Max wasn't just a dog. He was her hero. And for that, Lucy would be forever grateful. Sometimes, the smallest gestures and the simplest of dreams lead to the most extraordinary journeys. Lucy's decision to buy a service dog at an auction began a path far beyond her imagination, a bond that would redefine the meaning of heroism. Max, her unexpected companion, proved that the greatest miracles often come in the most unassuming forms. Together, they navigated life's challenges, and through their connection, Lucy learned that love and loyalty could heal more than just wounds. In Max, she found not just a dog, but a hero, a partner, and a reminder of life's incredible, unexpected blessings. Watch till the end to witness the incredible moment that left everyone speechless. Like, share and spread awareness. Some heroes walk on four paws.